Hi, I'm Ken Kadet with the Entrust Cybersecurity Institute. We are here at RSA and we are talking to partners about Zero Trust. And so I'm really happy to have here today Brian Carpenter of CyberArk. Brian, welcome.
Thank you.
Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us what your role is at CyberArk?
Will do. My name is Brian Carpenter. I am a Senior Director of Business Development at CyberArk. I've been with CyberArk for about 7 years in this role. We work with a lot of our technology partners like Entrust to build integrations with our products to help make clients more secure, more compliant, and more efficient.
Great. So you're here at the show, you're talking to customers all the time. Tell me a little bit about what you're hearing from customers about security concerns and what's going on today.
Yeah, from a security concern standpoint, one of the things that's top of mind is around Zero Trust, and companies really getting their arms around how to verify every individual, how to verify every machine, and then also how to intelligently limit privileged access when it comes to Zero Trust, whether it's on-prem, hybrid, or in the cloud. Also hearing a lot of concerns around ransomware. Companies are implementing cybersecurity risk insurance, and as a result, these companies have certain controls that they want them to implement, and how to implement those controls is also top of mind. But I think really a lot of companies are looking at that cloud migration and multi-cloud and how to get their arms around all the extra permissions and credentials that go along with those environments, and how to manage those are really top of mind. And as it relates to that zero standing privilege access, how to implement a zero standing privilege access in those type of environments is really a concern.
That makes sense. So let's step back for a second. Privileged access management, obviously key to what we're doing. Define that for us, and what are some of the particular challenges of that in the way the environment is changing right now?
Yep, good question. When you think about privileged access, you think about really three different areas. One is that systems access. So if you think about system admins, root admins, those type of typically break glass accounts that need, and what the attackers are really looking for when they gain access to an environment.
You can get into anything. They can get into everything.
They're the keys to the kingdom.
Right.
And you want to make sure you're securing those and locking those down. There's also the operational day-to-day application type credentials that are out there. You want to make sure that you're securing those, but in a dynamic way, so that people have the access when they need the access, but not before or not after. So really that dynamic, just-in-time access to those credentials. There's also machines, and in most organizations, there's a ratio of about 45-1 machine identities to human identities, and getting your arms around that and securing those and making sure those machines have the access that they need to do their jobs is really critical. And that could be anything from a vulnerability management solution that needs access to credentials to go out and perform scans, or robotic process automation that needs access to credentials to go out and just do their jobs. Many different applications need access to those credentials, and finding a secure way to provide that is really key.
That's really interesting. Is it, are there special challenges that make it different in providing that security for machines versus people?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is one more vulnerable than the other?
Yeah, I think they're each equally vulnerable if they're not secured correctly, and if you don't have a good way to centrally manage that. Luckily, there are tools out there that can help you manage those credentials and provide them to those tools in a timely manner, and allow you to centrally manage that and make sure it's only the tools that need access to those credentials get the access, and only the individuals that need access to those credentials have the access when they need it. Sure. So the right ID at the right time.
You talked a little bit about how the environment is spreading out, about use of the cloud, and migration to the cloud. So what is the challenge of, or is there a particular challenge of privileged access management when you think about implementing Zero Trust across multiple clouds?
Yeah, absolutely. And as companies are transitioning to the cloud, with that comes a lot of entitlements and a lot of identities that need to be managed. And as you go to multi-cloud, that risk is just magnified. And finding a way to intelligently limit that privileged access to the individuals and to the machines that need the access and when they need it is a real challenge for organizations. And that's, I think, really one of the big security challenges that they face. Any of those identities in the hands of an attacker can be used as the beginning of an attack. We know that most attackers are looking for privileged credentials when they get into an environment, but any identity gives them that foothold to get in, and then they can use that to move laterally throughout the network, escalate privileges, and then get to ultimately what they want to do to either exfiltrate data or disrupt the business. So finding a way to manage all those credentials and secure all of them is really vital.
Are there some core principles on how to make sure that happens?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at privileged credentials, so some of the 4 key principles are, making sure you're enforcing least privilege, looking at making sure only individuals have access to only what they need, so that right ID at the right time, they have it at the time they need it. You're also authorizing and authenticating at the right time. So you're making sure that they are authenticated so that they have access to what they need and are authorized to get access to those credentials. You're also enforcing secure access, whether that's human, non-human, hybrid, on-prem, cloud, all those identities. You want to make sure that you're enforcing secure access. That could be strong risk-based authentication for individuals, could be included in that. But you're also monitoring, right? You want to make sure that you're continuously monitoring those individuals and those machines to make sure that if there are changes to a person's role, or if someone leaves the company, that things are updated in a timely and efficient manner. And having a centralized way to manage that is really critical for organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I've heard you talk about is identity sprawl. What is
Yes.
that? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, identity sprawl is really the expansion of the number of identities throughout an organization that companies have to manage. And we're seeing that as a major security challenge for a lot of organizations, especially as they're moving to the cloud. The number of entitlements and the number of identities that they have to manage is magnified, especially as you get to multi-cloud environments. That magnifies it even more. And a lot of organizations, with identities, it's a lot of individuals have access to 30 plus applications. So with each of those applications comes identities and credentials and privileged credentials. And then you also have non-humans. And non-humans, the ratio of identities from non-human to human is a ratio of about 45-1. So organizations getting their arms around that sprawl of all these additional identities is really a big challenge. And then when you throw in individuals that are working from home, remote access and hybrid environments and things like that, that is another component of that identity sprawl that is really a challenge for organizations to get their arms around.
Absolutely. So that's a lot of identities.
Yes, yeah.
If I'm a business leader, if I'm a IT leader, what question should I be asking my organization or my vendors,
Right.
In order to make sure that I'm shored up in this area as I move forward in my Zero Trust project?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. I think one of the first things I want to understand is, when we talk about identity sprawl, how are we going to centrally manage the privilege access? Especially, we want to make sure we have zero standing privilege access. We want to make sure that it's not persistent. Make sure we understand how to give access to those credentials when they need them, the right ID at the right time. And I think really 4 things to think about when having that conversation are: how do we enforce privilege, zero standing privilege access in the environments? How do we secure access across all assets, or all identities, whether it's human, non-human, on-prem, privilege, or in the cloud? How do we authenticate and authorize individuals in an efficient manner so that we're able to identify what you need access to and make sure you have access to that when you need it? And then also continuously monitor those identities to make sure that as things change within your organization, that those changes are incorporated into the access that those people need, whether they're changing roles or they're leaving the company or so on, making sure that their identity and their access are updated accordingly.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate the conversation.
Thanks for the invite. Yeah,
Enjoyed this.
likewise.
And thank you, everyone.